group of children surrounded a woman, asking if she was okay and tried their best to cheer her up. The woman's face showed indifference at their attempts at encouragement. She tried to get up, but her body was too weak, and she collapsed onto the floor. The children tried to lift her up, but she pulled her arm away in disgust and commanded that they leave her alone. The children, unwilling to disobey their mother, kept their distance. One of them, distraught by her fierce tone of voice, began to tear up and cried quietly, seeking comfort from another woman in the room. That woman being the sister of the mother being named Lily, and the sister, Agnes. Agnes gently hugged the crying girl with one arm, while gently cradling the newborn with her other. She was unable to have kids due to her profession as a nun, but loved taking care of her sister's children whenever she had the chance. She asked the other children in the room if they wanted to meet their newest member of the family, but none dared move unless their mother commanded it. The crying child looked over to the newborn and asked if he had been named yet, but Agnes shook her head. She asked Lily what the newborn was going to be named. Lily just stared at her, and her face scrunched up in annoyance. After a brief silence, she just got up and walked out of the barn they were staying at. Lily limped away, mumbling underneath her breath, followed by her children. Agnes watched her sister leave, and took the opportunity to bond with the newborn and his sister, asking the crying girl what she thought of the name Gregorius. The girl wiped away her tears and nodded her head in agreement. Agnes smiled and gently caressed Gregorius's face. She laughed and remarked that Gregorius was born with 3 moles on the right side of his face, finding it amusing. She told the girl to have a look, and they both laughed. The laughter woke Gregorius up, but he didn't cry or move. He simply stared at her, his eyes darting from Agnes to his sister to the room itself. His sister gasped dramatically, as a child does when they want to point something out, and said that Gregorius wasn't crying. Agnes reassured her that it was fine, and asked her if she'd rather see Gregorius calm or in distress. The girl pondered for a moment, and then said that she'd rather see him calm. Agnes enthusiastically praised the girl for choosing the right answer, and gently patted her on the head. Under Agnes's care and guidance, Gregorius and his sister grew up knowing what it felt like to be loved and appreciated, something their siblings grew to resent. Whenever Agnes wasn't around to keep an eye on them, Gregorius's older brothers would pick on him, mocking him for being soft and over-reliant on their aunt. They would occasionally take their anger out on the poor boy, resulting in Gregorius running to Agnes covered in bruises and in one case a broken finger. Agnes would try to bring up the issue with Lily, but her sister would berate her for trying to give unsolicited parenting advice when she herself was not a parent, and frankly would never be one. After this fallout, Agnes took Gregorius and his sister with her, and they resided in the town's local church. There Gregorius and his sister would be given a chance at making something of themselves in the clergy. His sister took her religious duties seriously, often going to bed around midnight, preferring to read religious texts than get any rest. Gregorius looked up to his sister and followed her ways, casting such a strong impression on his sister and aunt that they pushed for Gregorius to pursue a lifetime of servitude to God the Almighty. Wanting to live up to their expectations, he did just that, and for the next few years devoted his time to learning and living for God rather than himself. Many in his town would recall that despite his young age, Gregorius was more well-read than most people in the province, becoming something of a local sensation. Things were looking bright for the boy from Larissa, until Agnes passed away suddenly and mysteriously. Some said that she was taken by God, while others said she simply died of illness. What kind is up to speculation. All that is certain is that Lily, her sister, the person who was supposed to be her closest family, hastily had her buried and seized her belongings, taking Gregorius and his sister back home, where once again they'd be harassed by those who envied and despised them most, their closest family. Having lost someone they deeply cared for and loved with all their hearts, Gregorius and his sister would grieve for Agnes, and Gregorius would ask God why he had taken a pure soul away from them. His sister would try to console her young brother by telling him that God had his reasons, and what he did should not be questioned, even though deep down in her heart, she asked the very same thing. "Get over it," Lily would yell. "She wasn't even all what you make her up to be," she said. Scared and overcome with intense anxiety, Gregorius hid behind his sister, who tried to reason with their mother. This act of defiance would only serve to be Gregorius' sister's downfall. Across the town, it said that people were able to hear an ear-piercing scream, which ended as abruptly as it had started. Gregorius, horrified, would say nothing, fear having paralyzed the young boy. From then on, whatever his mother said, went. He abandoned any plans to join the clergy and was instead put to work at a nearby farm. In said farm, he would toil away, easily becoming fatigued, but dared not to stop until the sun went down and was called back home. On the second anniversary of his sister's death, he'd spend the night looking at the stars on a field and talk to the night sky, pretending his sister was up there, listening. After a bit of talking, Gregorius paused, as if he were waiting for his sister to respond, or give any type of sign that she was indeed listening. When he received no response or sign, Gregorius felt betrayed. He always had the idea that no matter what, he and his sister would stick together through thick and thin, and the fact that God had done nothing to save her or stop his mother from committing such a heinous sin of killing a fellow man, her own daughter, his sister, filled him with immense hatred for the man, the entity he deemed responsible for his life's problems. From then on, Gregorius would purge any thoughts of piety or holiness from his heart, and instead replace them with the indifference that had allowed that vile woman he called his mother to prosper. For perhaps the final time in his life, Gregorius allowed himself to cry, and left the memory of his beloved sister and Agnes behind on that field. Never again would the boy from Larissa let anyone get close to him. No matter how much they loved him, he could not risk feeling, quote, human. Years later, even with the parental love and affection given to him by Villanus and the imperial staff, Gregorius felt alone. In the end, he'd prefer that feeling of emptiness and loneliness, becoming a stone-faced misanthrope who would rather see his fellow man suffer than be happy. To Gregorius, people were just things he could use to get whatever he wanted. A stark contrast to Constantine XI, who viewed people as important as oneself and valued their lives. Gregorius, now aged 26 at the time of Constantine XI's assassination, found the news to be exciting. For now he was closer to becoming the next in line, thanks to his connection with Villanus. All that needed to be done was get rid of Villanus, and become the new heir apparent, no matter what.